By September 1944, Allied forces had spent 3 months sprinting across France, pushing the German army back mile after mile following the breakout at Normandy. But that forward momentum was stretching their supply lines to the breaking point. With winter fast approaching, military planners knew the weather would soon freeze their advance. They were under immense pressure to find a knockout blow that could cross the Rhine and end the war before Christmas. The proposed solution came from British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. He pitched a radical, high-risk shortcut designed to bypass the slow, grinding ground war by leaping over the German defenses. The desire to finish the war in 1944 made this high-stakes gamble appear like a necessary shortcut, shifting the strategic calculation towards speed and aggression. This map shows the 2-part structure of the plan. The first phase, Market, called for dropping 35,000 airborne troops far behind enemy lines to capture a specific chain of bridges across the Netherlands, highlighted here at Eindhoven, Nijmegen, and Arnhem. The second phase, Garden, relied on armored ground forces. They would race north up this narrow highway, relieving the paratroopers and securing a corridor straight into Germany. The entire corridor culminated here, at the bridge in Arnhem. It was the deepest drop zone of the operation, leaving the British troops assigned to hold it entirely isolated at the end of the chain. The strategy possessed absolutely zero margin for error. If the parachute drops were inaccurate, if the single road became blocked, or if communication broke down, the interconnected phases would instantly collapse. On September 17th, the launch commenced. Hundreds of transport planes and tow gliders filled the sky, marking the largest airborne drop in military history. But critical blind spots emerged almost immediately. Allied intelligence had missed the presence of 2 elite German SS Panzer divisions, resting and refitting right next to the Arnhem drop zone. The airborne troops arriving in these gliders carried only light weapons. They dropped into a tactical mismatch, unequipped to fight heavy tanks. Compounding the threat, their radio equipment failed upon landing. The British forces at Arnhem were suddenly unable to coordinate with each other, let alone call for reinforcements or support. Within mere hours of touching down, the operation lost both its situational awareness and its internal communication. The command structure was now largely blind to the disaster unfolding on the ground. Meanwhile, the ground rescue force was struggling to make its way up the single route designated for the advance, a stretch soon nicknamed Hell's Highway. Fierce German resistance created a massive traffic jam of Allied tanks and trucks. The rigid minute-by-minute timetable required for the Garden phase to succeed completely dissolved. Back in Arnhem, a small contingent of paratroopers under Lieutenant Colonel John Frost was trapped in brutal urban combat. Cut off from resupply and running out of ammunition, they held the north end of the bridge against relentless attacks. As the days passed, the isolated men eventually realized the grim reality. The armored column stuck in traffic miles away was not going to reach them in time. This was the fatal consequence of a tightly synchronized sequential plan. The logistical delay of the ground forces inherently guaranteed the destruction of the airborne troops waiting for them. After 9 days of fighting, the surviving British forces were ordered to abandon their position at the Arnhem Bridge and retreat across the river under the cover of darkness. This chart of the casualty data at Arnhem shows the true scale of the loss. Of the roughly 10,000 British paratroopers who landed in the drop zone, fewer than 2,500 made it back across the river. Because Arnhem remained in German hands, the door to Germany's industrial heartland remained shut. While the earlier bridges at Eindhoven and Nijmegen were secured, failing to hold the final bridge meant the operation's primary strategic objective had slipped away. With the shortcut closed, the Allies were forced into a brutal winter campaign, setting the stage for the massive German counteroffensive at the Battle of the Bulge months later. Today, the campaign serves as a case study in what happens when ambition ignores the practical limits of logistics and communication on the ground. A strategy that demands absolute mechanical perfection from every moving part is inherently fragile, a lesson cemented in history as a plan that went a bridge too far.